Hi everyone, thank you for joining this presentation. I think it's really important that parents and carers have a real oversight of exactly what's going on for their child in their classrooms and how teaching and learning looks at Countesthorpe Academy. We are on this really positive journey and teaching and learning has come a long way, even in the short time that I've been here at the Academy. And I want to share a little bit with you so you know exactly what's going on in the classroom for your child and how they will be learning based on the latest research informed teaching practices. So the aims over the next few minutes is just to share with you how far our teaching and learning really has come in the last 17 months at Countesthorpe Academy. I want to discuss the teaching and learning in the classroom. I want to discuss the feedback that your child will be receiving from their teachers that will help them to make progress in their learning. And I want to talk a little bit about our school values and how we see those evident in our classrooms. To begin with, although staff will have lots of areas to tweak things for their subject area and for their teaching style, lessons will always follow a similar structure in that students, when they come into the classroom, will have an activity complete straight away, and most likely will be working on retrieval practice, which is basically an activity that will support them with their long-term memory. And so it might be questions or quizzes or fun sort of games that will make them think about previous learning that's taken place in that subject area and will help them to make those connections and link it to future learning, which will help them with their long-term memory and making sure that everything they do learn, they remember long-term to prepare them for their futures. As students then move on with their learning in the classroom, they'll of course learn new knowledge. They'll be able to demonstrate what they've learned through activities that the teacher has asked them to complete, and then there'll be a review of the learning that's taken place that lesson. And that review may follow on then to the next lesson with the connect activity again. So you see that there's a cycle and a structure that will support students to learn best in the classroom. There are a number of principles of instructions that our teachers will follow in their classroom. I've already talked a little bit about lesson by lesson and daily reviews of learning to support our students with their long-term memory and to strengthen that knowledge and then to support learning the new materials in their lessons. Teachers will also provide instructions and teach new materials in lots of small chunked sets and steps. And that is to support students because their working memory is quite small, and therefore by providing small steps for instruction, students will be able to process what's expected of them and will be able to make progress better. Also, there'll be lots of questioning going on in the classroom in order to help the teacher see the success rate of students and their learning, and also to inform how the lesson will continue and how future lessons will run, just to determine how well the new material has been learned by the students and to really gauge their understanding. There'll be lots of models used in class, so where a teacher might talk through their thought process if they were to approach an activity that's been asked of them, what they would be thinking about, how they would begin an activity, what would make them successful. And those models really help students to then complete the activity themselves independently. And there'll be lots of guided student practice. So students might need additional time sometimes when completing activities or responding to a question to rephrase, to elaborate, to summarise new material in order to support them with their long-term memory and be successful. And also throughout the lesson, the teacher will be checking for student understanding by moving around the room, by continuing with asking those questions, by looking in the books at their work that they're completing, by getting them to complete some discussion activities. The whole aim of this is to achieve, obviously, and obtain a really high success rate of the students in the classroom and making sure that they really are learning and being the best that they can be. If some students are struggling with some difficult tasks, then there'll be scaffolds that we put in place to support all students with being able to access the very best materials and the very best learning. And over time, those scaffolds can be taken away so that students can start to look at the work and complete the activities more independently. Independent practice is really, really important, and independent practice allows for students to work on their own and process that new material and make sure that their working memory is not being overloaded. And finally, going back to that review of learning again, and it's also important that takes place on a weekly and monthly basis as well as lesson by lesson. Now, something you might want to know a little bit more about is how will teachers of your child provide feedback and let your child know where they're being successful and what they can do to continue to be even greater with their learning. There's a number of different strategies that teachers will use with their students. The first one might be an example of whole class feedback. This is where a teacher will address the whole class. They might provide a sheet, they might provide something on a PowerPoint slide that will share with the students, based on their latest learning or a piece of work, all the successes of the students in the class, maybe any areas of misconception with a large number of students where there might be a topic that needs readdressing or a skill that needs reworked. And most importantly, there'll be something that the teacher will ask students to do individually to look at their successes, to look at how they can get demonstrate their learning even better, and to give them that time to work on that and upgrade and make progress in their learning there and then based on the feedback that the teacher provides. And of course, the teacher will also provide individual feedback to students. So if there's assessments taking place or PPEs or specific activities where it's most impactful for students to have individual feedback, again, they'll be told what the successes are. They might be given some marks for that, and they'll be given some time to reflect on the feedback that the teacher's given them individually to work on in order to continue to make those improvements in their work. Quizzing is a great strategy in the classroom or for homework activities that allows for students to get instant feedback based on the answer they provided, so they can see what knowledge they do have and where they've been successful, and maybe areas where they've forgotten or they've not learnt it well, and where they've got their answers wrong, and they'll see the correct answers through that quizzing and the feedback from that. Also going back to questioning again, it's a great strategy that can be used by teachers to make sure that students are understanding, to provide responses to a student's answer, to make sure that they have feedback in response to the answers they provide, and the feedback might then call on the student to then expand or then to elaborate further with their answers, and that provides them again this reflective tool for them to look at what they're successful in and to respond to that and to continue to improve. And finally, I think pair share strategy or activity students might take part in the classroom, which involves time for students to really think. Thinking and that time to sit and pause for a moment in lessons is really important for students. They then would be asked to share those thoughts with the people around them or in a pair. And then finally, those responses would be called upon to be able to share across the whole class. And again, teachers will be able to respond live and verbally there and then with feedback with that pair or that individual based on their thoughts and their responses. Now, something that's really important within the classroom so that the teaching can be at its best and so that students can learn at their best and be the best they can be is through using our respect and behaviour policies in the classroom. We have a really positive approach to how we try to make sure we have the right climate for learning in our classrooms. And your child at home may discuss the post-it ladder and how staff are able to reward students based on their attitude to learning in the classroom. And this can be from a range of them being identified as being phenomenal in the classroom, and you might even receive and see a postcard being sent home for that amazing work. Outstanding work in which V points and value points are awarded to students, which also goes into a house competition. And also, obviously, the expectation that standards are met by all students when they come into the classroom. They're in the right place at the right time, doing the right things, meeting behaviour expectations, meeting effort expectations, and demonstrating our school values in the classroom. Now, sometimes things might not go to plan, and sometimes students can make little mistakes in the classroom, and we allow students to think about their actions in the classroom, encourage them to think about what they've just done and getting things right and moving things forward. But we want a really positive environment in the classroom that allows the very best teaching and learning to take place. And this is just one strategy and support mechanism that staff across the school will use with their students in the classroom. Now, we really have moved forward with looking at the latest research in educational fields, looking at what research has taken place in other schools and in universities that is proven to help students in their classroom learn at their very best. We have a staff and pupil research and reading group that's looking into all the latest books that have been published and articles that have been published about what works in other schools, and then these groups will be trialling it in their classrooms and sharing best practice across our teaching staff. Similarly, as with all schools, we have a professional development programme, and all of our staff will have training to continue to move them on professionally, to develop their classroom practice, to use the latest strategies, and to make sure that everything that we do in the classroom has impact for our students to help them learn to their very best and be the best that they can be. Thank you so much for listening to the presentation today. If you have any questions at all regarding the teaching and learning that your child is receiving at Countesthorpe Academy, please feel free to contact me anytime. My email address is amckenzie@clcc.college. Thank you.